welcome back to the Sidetrack Sport podcast. This episode will be exploring a neurodiverse perspective of sport, and I'm really excited for this episode. But before we go into all of that, let's just talk a little bit about what neurodiversity is. So the term neurodiverse refers to people with a difference in brain functioning. And the term difference there is really key. It's not better brain functioning or worse brain functioning. It's just a difference in how the brain works. And that includes people with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and quite a few more different things too. And neurodivergent people are all different, just like neurotypical people are. And neurotypical, for those that don't know, is the term for people who don't have a neurodiverse condition. And so any experiences that we speak about in this episode do not necessarily reflect on the experience of all neurodivergent people. So if you've got a family member, a friend, or you know someone who's neurodiverse, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can relate to what we're going to talk about exactly. The impact of being neurodiverse also manifests really differently in all people. Not all neurodivergent individuals, for example, are nonverbal or insanely good at math, or even not even heavily reliant on maybe external support or a care worker. And part of this episode will actually be sharing a real experience of neurodiverse people rather than what we often see as a script-written, dramatized version shown on TV through characters like Sheldon. And many of you listening actually are probably a fan of a neurodiverse sports person and you don't even know it. So some of my favorite neurodiverse athletes include the best, the most iconic queen of gymnastics, the best of all time, Simone Biles. She's neurodiverse. Also, the most decorated Olympian of all time, the one, the only Michael Phelps, 100 meters Olympic and world champion Noah Lyles, Manchester United women's goalkeeper Sophia Middleton Patel, and one of my personal favourite athletes, Olympic long jump champion Tara Davis Woodall. And I imagine maybe shocked or surprised to learn that some of these athletes, or all of these athletes, are neurodiverse, because maybe you've not heard them speak about it, or you've just not thought of that as a possibility. But their success proves that the stigmas around neurodiversity, which are often seen as a barrier for many people, are just so wrong. And with that, let me introduce you to episode 3's special guest. Joining me today is Diani, and she is a sprinter, teacher, and fellow neurodiverse girly. So Diani, do you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into athletics and specifically sprinting?
My name's Diani. Like Jasmine said, I'm a teacher by default. And when I got into sport, it was more or less when I was like 9 years old. I've always been like a sporty kid. I always liked racing in primary school, in the playground. And I remember like I went to a Catholic sports day against other Catholic schools, and it still goes on to this day in Birmingham. And that was my first ever 100-meter race when I was like in probably like year 5. And after that point, like I just completely just like went off, and then obviously I won it. So then my teachers was like, "Oh my gosh, she needs to come to the Birchfield Academy," because we was racing at Alexander Stadium, which is where Birchfield is based. So my dad did take me, but I also wanted to join because my brother was going. So I had this thing to copy him as well, because I thought, oh, he's got all this thing to jump over. I want to jump over it too. So
And that must have been quite cool, actually, having Alexander Stadium as your home track. I mean, now obviously it's been renovated, but even when you were younger, it was still an amazing track to call your home track. What was that like?
when I started and I was like quite young in the youth era, I remember like seeing the athletes that I ended up being in teams with was just like there was giants to me. So it was like I was like in a big stadium that literally was huge because of how small I was. So I remember going to like British Championships, watching athletes that used to run for our club who are long gone retired, like got grandkids now and stuff. And I used to watch them, and I remember that kind of ignited that, oh, I want to do something like this because they have a crowd, people shouting their names. But I still didn't understand fully how you actually get there. I just thought, oh, they just got plotted there.
Yeah.
So I didn't really understand that they actually started from where I was until I got older and started to actually take that path properly.
And so then we'll go into sort of the neurodiverse aspect of being an athlete as well. But before we go into athletes specifically, how do you find as a typical day to day being neurodiverse might impact you?
So there's there's the funny side and there's the challenging side. So
Yeah.
the funny side is like just simply talking to my friends, and my friends will be talking to me, and once I've literally locked in and looking at them, they've lost me. And I always tell them, if I'm looking away from you, it's because I'm listening. Yeah, it's not because I'm ignoring you, but when I'm looking at you, I've literally fixated and found something. Like there's a time where like my friends would be like, "Is something in my hair?" I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to focus and think of what you're saying." And it's like hard to understand.
And
That's the
then you're
funny side of
thinking
it.
so much about trying to think about what they're saying that then you're not thinking about what they're saying because you're
Yeah.
thinking about it. And yeah.
Sometimes they'll be like, they'll ask me a question, I go, "Yeah," and then then I come with the answer, and they're like, it's like they just know me so well, but it's I find it hard to encounter it with new people because it's like, okay, I have to like really be focused on what they're saying and be like engaged and try to look at them because I don't want to be like they're like looking at me like, oh, is something wrong? I'm like, no, like I'm just having to explain it. I'll say the challenging side of it is like getting overwhelmed in certain spaces when it's like or like having a lot having stuff that are really brand new
Mm,
changes in the academic year is very hard for me
mm.
at the start because I get really like anxious not knowing things.
And like I particularly like when you're listening to people, I relate to that a lot. But also for me, find that like I need like a really strong structure, but then at the same time, I don't want structure, and it's a really weird battle in your head. And then when you're looking at sport, have you noticed ways that maybe being neurodiverse has helped in your sport at all?
Say with ADHD, you get bored, and I'm quite inattentive, so I can just switch off and just like look at something, and it's like, okay, that's just too much of a pile,
Mm,
or it's like I see the end point, and I'll just reach that end point, and I'll be like, okay, what's next? Where like in sport, there's never an end point. There's always something. Okay, I've reached that, but there's actually more, and there's more, and there's more. It's like in 100 meters, there's always faster.
yeah.
There's always like new competitions. There's always a competition you haven't won yet, or there's a competition that like even if you have won it, you're like, oh, I want a second one. I want a third one. Like
Yeah. Or even like
there's
you want to
never
get the
ending.
record or something. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's always something new. So it's like that's why there's no barrier there. But then there's so many aspects in my life where there's like when it's so routine and you just can see what it can reach to you, it just becomes mundane.
Yeah. And one way I've struggled a lot with sport is something as simple as just keeping track of like sets and reps of stuff. Like so
Yeah.
many times, like, and I didn't realize this was due to my neurodiversity till I got diagnosed. And because like always I've either had to have like my mum or coach or a friend, like I'll be halfway through a set and be like, how many have I done? And they'll be like, Jasmine, it's this many. I'm like, oh, okay. And like, it's such a like small, silly thing, but like I have to concentrate on counting rather than actually like the exercise I'm doing. And it just seems so silly, but it's so annoying, really.
I'll forget to look at the actual program. I'll just be like, I know what's in my head, and I know, and then I will do the sets that I remember from probably like 2 weeks ago, what probably was changed, or like I will just do completely different, and it's just like it's five, not seven. I'm like, oh, like, and like, but they know me. They just know like I just don't look at things.
Yeah.
And then like, say for instance, if it's reps in on the track with my track coach, and I will count completely different to everybody else. Like I have a thing where I will count backwards because if I count forwards, it will make me feel worse. So I'm like, if it's six or something, I'll go, okay, that was six. Now we're going to five. Now it's going to four. Everyone else is counting one, two, three, four, five.
Right.
Like, and I'm having to do a completely different way in order to just like remember where I'm at. Or if it's two diagonals on the graph, well, we have to do it technically 8 times, but my coach is like, is two, is four. I'll get confused. By the time I hit five, I'm like, where am I? Like,
Yeah, you just find it all gets so like jumbled up, and then when you're actually trying to focus on like, I don't know, if you're trying to focus on like a specific technique and how you're running or something, no, you can only do one thing at a time, really.
coach always has a dilemma with me when I'm racing. It's like there's times when I've actually not fought and it's just collided in the past, and it's like every time, yeah, I tell you to do so, you do it, but you forget your. I'm like, I know, but I can't help it. I don't know
Yeah.
why. But it's an ongoing battle that we have.
Yeah, when I was still training as well, my coach sort of had a similar thing. Like he'd always tell me, because I always overthought everything, and I think that's quite a common thing for some like neurotypical people, but neurodiverse people, it's a very common thing. And he'd just be like, just don't overthink it. Like just don't think and just feel the movement. And like I was like, every time I looked at him, like I can't do that. You're telling me not to overthink, and now I'm thinking about not overthinking, which means I'm overthinking even more. It was just an impossible
Think about
cycle,
it.
literally.
It's because you're dissecting everything. Okay, I need to get in this angle. So, and it's like he's telling me, but I don't want you to think of it. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. You're telling me this. I can't think about it, but you're telling me to do it. But how am I not to do it if I can't think about
Exactly.
it?
But then, are there any ways that maybe you find being neurodiverse has particularly helped? So for me, like I said, I really need like that structure, and for me, having training gave me that structure and gave me sort of that responsibility of, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, I'm training at this time. Wednesday, Friday, this time. Is anything like that you found as well?
I'm not really a fan of like, okay, this week we can go in the morning or we can go in the evening. Like, especially like if it's in a week where, say, for Thursday I trained in the morning, but on Tuesday I trained I prefer to just go straight evening. I'll be like confused, like, oh, wait, are we training in the morning this week? So, but then that calculated like time based, just how everything, like, say, even with my work, I have my class, I teach my class at exactly the same time and I leave at exactly the same time. Say for my gym sessions with is in another place, but then that's only just one day, so I know that that's the Wednesday. It's a very bang on the middle of the week.
Yeah.
So I always like to gym right in the middle of the week because I know that it's just like that. It's not confusing.
And another thing I found, I don't know if you could relate as well, but I always found it gave me a good space to make friends almost slightly easier because I knew they had a similar interest and like I could bond over that. Whereas like in school or thing, it was a bit more open. Like there's not necessarily a particular thing you could bond over. Whereas going to training, like you could bond over that sort of thing. And I found that a lot easier, I think, looking back as well.
Yeah, I met most of my friends in track and field. Like I have friends outside of it, but if I was to weigh out how many, it would override in track and field.
Yeah.
In other sports as well. So it's not even just track and field. I've met people who do weightlifting. I met people in dance, and so it's like you can relate in the journey in that way because even though it's like a whole different like rules, sport, and everything like that, but the journey still is kind of similar. You still have to train, you still have to compete, you still feel that same feeling.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, I just think neurodiversity in sport, like it's just not been talked about, looked into, because even just neurodiversity as a whole, it's in the last few years has only just started to have a lot more awareness about how it presents differently. And yeah, so then looking at it in sport, it's just such a new topic, a new area, and it's something that I think people almost like to ignore because it is different. And I mean, I don't know about you, but over the last year especially, I've seen a lot of stuff on social media taking like the mick out of people with autism or ADHD. And so then trying to have serious conversations about how sport or how neurodiversity and anything might interact is sort of become quite difficult, I think. There's a lot of fear around being like the butt of the joke kind of thing. And definitely comes from a place of misunderstanding, I think, or even lack of education as well. But at the same time, whilst we have so many people joking about it, there's also at the same time been a rise in a lot more people speaking out about their experiences, like as we might be here. And it's so drastically different. There's like two sides to social media, and I think a lot of people unfortunately fall on the negative side and aren't getting that bit where they're understanding how neurodiverse people actually experience life in real life, rather than having people like young Sheldon on TV. Not everyone's like
that. Yeah, he's like the biggest representation of autism.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, and in the West, you know what's even worse about that? He's a male as well. So like they don't understand fully that women and men total different ball game for both genders, like the way that's portrayed. And what I can say though is places like TikTok has really helped a lot of people feel like they can relate a lot, because TikTok has been more authentic than Instagram, you know what I mean? Where like Instagram is kind of like prim and proper and having to direct that focus to get that attention, where TikTok is just people just being themselves and getting attention, just being themselves. People generally engage in it and think, okay, that's me as well. Like, and it's like, so it's so good when people, I'm not trying to diagnose anyone on TikTok as well, but people didn't be like, oh, wow, like I actually act like, I think like this, or I behave like this as well. Let me actually look at it. So then people don't really disregard their own thoughts and feelings about feeling a bit different, but not, because in my friendship groups, I do divert myself straight to neurodivergence naturally. And that neurodivergence finds a neurodivergent,
You
not
always
even
find each
realize
other
it.
somewhere.
Yeah, and quite a few of my friends are literally neurodivergent or ADHD, or have like traits, like really strong traits, even if they're undiagnosed, but they're just like, I think I am. I'm like, I know you are.
Yeah, they're sat there like, I think I might be. And she's like, you are. Yep, you are. I can tell you that.
I feel like neurodiversity in sport is like really huge. And when you're fixated, you're more likely to actually excel in that thing. People in sport who have like excelled, I see bits in them, some of them, not all of them, that have excelled because of that ADHD in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because, like you think about the best sports people in the world and you try and comprehend like the hours and the work that they have to put into that. And you sort of sit there like, how do they do that? But if they do have ADHD specifically and they're just hyper focusing on that sport, like it makes so much sense. And I think that's actually a really important way for a lot of people to look at neurodiversity and ADHD specifically. And if like people have got like a child or a family member or friend with ADHD, it's not like a death sentence. It's not a bad thing. It's just a way to understand how their brain works. And it doesn't mean that they can't do whatever it is they want to do in life. And I think that's such an important thing to highlight, because a lot of people still will see autism or ADHD diagnosis or some sort of diagnosis and be like, oh no, and think they can't do this. And it's like, no, that's actually the opposite. You just might have a unique route to getting there, or being neurodiverse actually might be the reason why you get there. And I think that's definitely a really important point for people to understand.
It can be tough at first when you have that awareness. You realize, okay, I'm just like this. I can't reverse it.
Yeah.
Like, because, like growing up, even like teenagehood, and you kind of feel like the opposite to everybody. You do feel like the odd one out. And it's like, okay, I thought it was a phase, but no, it's actually me. So then I can say like it's kind of like difficult at first. You like having to get your head around it, and then you look back and think of all the challenges you went through, thinking I didn't know, and I could have made things could have been a little bit better for me. But then that's why I'm like, I rather, even though I didn't have that privilege, I would I'll be happy to be able to help people like go through that confusion in whatever way I can do, and not be like making them feel like they are challenging, because some of them naturally feel like they are challenging, but I'm like, listen, you're different, you're just a different challenge for an atypical sometimes. And that's not how they are used to their own routine or behavior.
Yeah.
It's really like I'm so glad that things are, especially social media, highlights it itself.
Yeah, and I think neurodiverse people as well can have a big impact in challenging the stereotypes of being neurodiverse, because they go against the stereotypes that we see often in the media, like Sheldon. Like I said, like, you would never expect to see the character Sheldon at the Olympics. Like, that's just not in his written character. But that doesn't mean neurodiverse people can't be there. And I think having athletes that are open about their neurodiversity, whichever that is, it definitely helps to show not just young people but parents and people who are just watching sport that that's possible. But people might have a slight fear of speaking out because of what's been going on and people sort of taking the mick out of it. And I don't know if you've seen it, but like it's died down a bit now, but over the last year, like there's been loads of jokes about people being called like acoustic, and they're like, oh, they're so acoustic, calling them like autistic, but as like an insult. And it's like,
Yeah.
And it'd be like someone's just got maybe an interest in something that's a bit niche, and they'll be like, oh, they're so acoustic. And I'm like, just because someone has a very niche interest doesn't mean they're autistic. And even if they are autistic, it's not an insult, it's just a fact. So, and
there would be an insult like when we was in school, like, oh, are you dyslexic? Yes.
So
yeah, and I've still got a master's degree now.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that used to be like people just throw that out of the window as an insult. I'm like, being dyslexic doesn't mean you're dumb, like, but it's like you're dumb for thinking that. So it's like it's reverse Uno on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have made a point, like people have like made like just like a comment to just say as a tick. It's like, are you an idiot? Like, are you autistic? Or like, but yeah, because of whatever they've read on just a major platform of how it looks. Like you said, Michelle, and like autism means you're a nerd. Autism means that you are just literally have no emotion, because they don't even know that there's a scale. Like, there's Asperger's, which is more sociable. That's my line. You know, like I'm able to socialize, even though sometimes I kind of get like overwhelmed and burned. So I'm like, okay, bye guys. But like, but there's different, and then the spectrum's wide. So everybody is on the spectrum, but it's just where you are. So there's so many times when people be like, oh, I think that everybody is autistic. Oh, I think that everybody's autistic. I'm like, if you really thought you was autistic, you know about it.
Yeah.
Because you will actually feel the divide. Everybody has snippets of like percentage of traits, but it's just how severe your traits are.
And the thing with especially autism as well, I'm not so sure whether it's with ADHD as well, but it's about the hyper or hypo ends of stuff. So like people can be hyper empathetic or hypo empathetic. So they're either really, really empathetic or not empathetic. And a lot of people just know about okay, if you're autistic, you're really smart, you have no empathy, you're almost robotic. And because that's what has been shown a lot in media, and it's very much a small percentage of people that are autistic that are like that. And it sort of relates back again to how I think athletes can challenge that, like elite athletes themselves. I think if they will speak out about it more often, about not just their challenges, but how they feel it empowers them as an athlete, I think that would make a really big difference. And maybe in the next few years, we'll see a little bit more of that as athletes maybe become more comfortable speaking about it. But how do you feel, Diani, that sports people, not just elite, but at grassroots level or any level really, could use their platform as an athlete to challenge those stereotypes?
Like, say for instance, they have like athlete commission. You qualify if you like compete for GB within. I wanted to go through it in the past, but at the time I was still quite early on. But I've seen athletes that go on the board, and I feel like the requirement would be like an athlete, at least one or two athletes who have like some inclusive diversity differences. And sometimes with inclusive diversity, they just think a visible disability or race. So when inclusive diversity goes a lot deeper than that, like you can ask for somebody who's it's not offensive to ask for somebody who is on the scale of understanding or being autistic, being ADHD, being dyslexic, being dyspraxic, also like it's like people are scared to ask the question as if it's offensive. It's not. I feel like in those kind of spaces, like in the Athlete Commission Board, like they should ask for somebody in that realm.
Yeah, I totally agree. Having someone who's neurodiverse on an Athlete Commission Board is so important because it just provides at least one athlete. It just provides that other perspective, and they might provide some things that neurotypical people just might not think about. And it's not necessarily bad on the neurotypical person for not thinking about that because it's not been their lived experience. And so, yeah, they might not think about it, but that's why you should have someone who is neurodiverse in that position to able to sort of try and help provide that support for other neurodiverse people because we are here, like we do exist. And so just to start to finish off the podcast, I'm going to try continue this whole little inspirational, positive mode that we're on. What is one thing that you wish people knew about being neurodiverse and being sporty?
I find that because I'm a neurodivergent, I'm able to connect to different people because I can mold in different spaces, and even though masking falls in that.
I agree with that, and as well, I think for me, it's sort of circling back to something we've already touched on a little bit, but I just wish that everyone, whether you're a parent, a young person, or just someone listening who's just interested, I just wish everyone understood that neurodiversity is the opposite of a barrier in sport. It can definitely be the thing that makes you successful. Not saying that there won't be difficulties. Obviously, there will be challenges and difficulties with everything, but it is something that's unique to you, and using that to your advantage is really important, I think, as well. And understand that, like, if you're a parent with a young child who's neurodiverse, whether they've got autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, whatever it is, letting that child know that it is something that can empower them as well, and it's not just got the negative like things about it. I think that's so important.
And don't be scared of being diagnosed if you feel like you are. Even if you're not, don't be scared to just settle yourself and just think, you know what, I want to know where I'm at,
Yeah.
so then I know how to move forward. Especially it's good with coaches being able to be aware of how to, because I've been fortunate to have my coach who understands and he knows. So then he knows how I am, and he knows when I'm getting ticked off. He knows when I'm boiling up. He knows or he knows when once I go quiet, he's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just meditating."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then I hope anyone who's listening to today's podcast has learned a little something, whether you're neurodivergent yourself, you know someone who is, or you don't know of anyone who is, or whatever your situation is. I hope you've just learned a little something and can take something away and can challenge any potential unconscious biases that you might have yourself about neurodiversity in sport. But yeah, that's it for today's episode. Thank you for getting sidetracked with us.
Thank you, Jasmine, for having me.
That's all right. And see you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye. Toodles.